All right, mathlets, today we're going to put a couple of new concepts together, actually a couple of old concepts together to learn a new concept, and this is how do we solve quadratic equations. First of all, let's talk about what it means to solve a quadratic equation. We're looking for something very specific here. So if I give you a rough graph of a parabola, and let's say it looks like this. So there are three main things that we're looking at when we're trying to solve any parabola. We want to know, where does it cross the x-axis? So where does y equal 0? Because y equals 0 is where it crosses the x-axis. That helps tell us how wide it is. And then we want to know where the vertex is. And that's the bottom point or the top point. Because if this was an upside down parabola, like let's say I drew a parabola upside down, the vertex would be up here if it opens down. That's all that is. So what we're going to focus on today is finding where y equals 0. So we are looking for where the parabola crosses the y-axis. Here's something important about this. You'll see that it crosses the axis in two places. Every parabola either crosses the axis in two places or not at all. So if you have a parabola like this, maybe it doesn't cross at all, right? In that case, this formula that we're going to learn won't work, but that's okay because it won't matter. But if the parabola crosses the y-axis, if it equals 0 somewhere, it's going to equal 0 in two places. And that'll be important, you'll see in just a moment. So there is a formula called the quadratic formula. This is going to be written down on the assignment so that you don't have to memorize it. But I do need you to write it down every time you solve the problem. So do it the way I do it. So first things first, let's look at an equation for a parabola that we want to find the zeros for. So I'm going to give you f of x equals 3x squared minus 4x minus 9. So that's my equation for a parabola. All right, what do? I'm going to use this thing called the quadratic formula to solve that equation. The first thing that I'll do is I'm going to take f of x and then I'm going to set it to 0. That's my first step. Why is it 0? It's 0 because I want to know, where does this equation equal 0? And it's going to equal 0 in two different places. So this is useful. Set it to 0. Now I'm going to make this equation smaller. I'm going to put it off to the side because this is to model, in order to model for you how I want you to solve these. So now we're going to have 3x squared minus 4x minus 9 equals 0. The quadratic formula you're going to write over here to the right. So the formula itself, look at that. I even had to look it up. I had to turn on my computer to look it up, so I don't expect you to have this memorized, okay? All right, the quadratic formula is negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And there's one more caveat, one more warning, which is that a can't equal 0. A cannot equal 0. Because if a equals 0, then it doesn't exist. All right. So you will write this down on the upper right of every problem that you solve for me on this week's assignment. Or else I will mark you down for not doing that when you solve it. All right, so what does this A, B, and C mean? That's a very good question, right? What is he even talking about when he puts all these A, B, and C of these letters? This is weird. So this is A, this is B, this is C. Remember that we were referring to the integer. We were referring to the number, not the variable. So leave the variable out when you do the A, B, and C. So that's what the A, B, and C is referring to. It's a lot like when you were multiplying binomials or when you were factoring polynomials. That's why we did that. Look at that. It all connects. Okay, so let's put this into the quadratic formula. So we're going to have, first of all, what we're looking for an x. So x equals negative, so we got b is negative 4. So you're going to negative quantity, negative 4. Make sure you get all the signs in there, plus and minus. I will show you what this plus and minus mean later. It's coming. Negative 4 plus and minus square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times the quantity of 3, because A was 3, times negative 9, because C was negative 9. All of that's inside of that radical. So they're all stuck in jail there in the radical. And that is all over 2 times the quantity of A, which A is 3. So 2 times 3. And then we just start doing our basic arithmetic here. So we're going to end up with the negative 4 is going to turn into positive 4. 4 plus and minus. Inside that square root, all those things are going to turn into square root of 124. Just trust me. When you add all this, when you multiply all these things and do all the adding, you're going to end up with a square root of 124. And that is all over 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. Right? 2 times 3 equals 6. So 4 plus minus square root of 124. Remember yesterday's assignment? We were doing simplifying radicals. Now you know why we're simplifying radicals, because this is a radical that can be simplified. And really, the reason I would do that, because the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to check, is 124 a perfect square? Is there a number that multiplied by itself equals 124? The answer is no, there isn't. So you're going to do all your factor trees, and you're going to simplify the square root of 124, and you're going to end up with 4 plus and minus 2 times the square root of 31 all over 6. So that 2 root 31 is the same as the square root of 124. 4 plus and minus, so that looks like this. 4 and 6 could be simplified. So I can actually simplify those out. I can divide them both by 2. So I'm going to end up with 2 plus minus 2 times the square root of 31 over 3. Now this plus and minus, remember, there's a plus and a minus because there are 2 zeros to the parabola, one on the right, one on the left. So in order to make this work, we have to do a plus, and we have to do one of each. This expression right here cannot be simplified any further. I don't want to see a bunch of decimals. Not useful to us. You're just going to leave it in that square root form. And this is how you're going to do it. One answer will be 2 plus 2 is the square root of 31 over 3. And then the other answer will be 2. Oh, excuse me, I should have divided all that by 2. Boop. That 2 went away, by the way, when we divided them. And then the other one would be 2 minus the square root of 31 all over 3. Parentheses, boom. There's our answer. These are real numbers. They do exist. This is where that parabola crosses the x-axis. Excuse me. Yeah, the x-axis, where y equals 0 on this parabola. We're going to do another one in another video.